A very good morning. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to welcome all vice chancellors and presidents of GLU, eminent panelists, honorable guests, and all participants to the 5th GLU Management Forum 2021. The forum will begin shortly. Kindly remain online until the end of the forum. We would like to seek your cooperation to ensure that your microphone is mute and your camera is switched off during the forum. In addition, please ensure that you have good internet connection throughout the forum. Let us kindly set your setting to the full screen mode. Before we would like to invite Vice Chancellors, Presidents of GLU, Yang Berbahagia Profesor Teknologi Dr. Mohamed Ibrahim Abdul Muttalib, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Teknologi Petronas and Chairman of GLU Council. Yang Berbahagia Profesor Dato Insinyur Dr. Kamal Nasharuddin Mustafa, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Tenaga Nasional. Yang Berbahagia Profesor Dato Dr. Mazliha Muhammad Suud, President, Multimedia University. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Roziah Omar, President, Chief Executive Officer, Universiti Kuala Lumpur. Eminent panelists, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Haji Syed ZAINAL ABIDIN Syed Muhammad TAHIR, Group Managing Director, Dagang NeXchange Berhad. Yang Berbahagia Profesor Dr. Insinyur Iwa Garniwa MULYANA, Rector, Institut Teknologi PLN, representative of APERTI B.U.M.N. Yang Berbahagia Profesor Dr. Lawrence Loh, Director, Center for Governance and Sustainability, National University of Singapore Business School. Yang Berbahagia Mr. IZHAM A.B. WAHAB, Head, Group Human Capital, DRB-HICOM Berhad, and our moderator, Mr. THIAN Yi Wei, General Manager, Corporate Planning Division, Universiti Kuala Lumpur, to the breakout room for a photo opportunity.
If you have a mind to upset the status quo with your big ideas for tomorrow's world, then maybe we're just the thing for the genius in you. For starters, every fellow here is brilliant too, hired to rethink how we think and prove that impossible isn't at all. We love their visionary points of view and how their top-tier ideas are helping us to expand what we know and don't know about our world. Working hand in hand, we're out to better the ways energy works for us, to market our inventive ideas and fast-track a world that takes care of us all. Responsible entrepreneurship that will rub off on you. You'll leave our halls of learning wired not just for sensible science, but sustainable business too. A thinker, a breath of fresh air, a game changer, a global visionaire. Primed to keep progress on its toes, the competition on the run, and our planet clean, safe, and secure. But wait, forget the future for now and focus first on making the choice that will trigger the full potential of you. Enroll, and then, maybe tomorrow, the next big thing that rocks our world will be you.
To those of you who have come in search of answers, seeking inspiration and looking to achieve your aspiration, this is the place where you will learn to find the answers, where you will be motivated to discover your inspiration, where you will be propelled to realize your aspirations. With today's global challenges, the role of the engineer, the scientist, and the technologist is transformed from being the technical innovator into being the agent of global change. Our world-class resources and faculties, our cutting-edge facilities, our global partnerships with leading universities, our strong network with industry for internships and job placements, our worldwide research collaboration. These are the inspirations and the opportunities at UTP. Here, we nurture the analytical skills and intellectual capabilities of all who walk the UTP path. Here we culture the ethics and the attitudes that will shine in the real world. Here we expose ourselves to what it truly means to be human, to be a valuable part of society, to be the empowered people, the game changers, who will light up the path towards a better world and change lives for the better. At UTP, the torch is firmly in your hands. So hold it up high and let us together light it and let it burn brightly. Join us to seek inspiration and achieve your aspiration towards global prominence.
If you have a mind to upset the status quo with your big ideas for tomorrow's world, then maybe we're just the thing for the genius in you. For starters, every fellow here is brilliant too, hired to rethink how we think and prove that impossible isn't at all. We love their visionary points of view and how their top-tier ideas are helping us to expand what we know and don't know about our world. Working hand in hand, we're out to better the ways energy works for us, to market our inventive ideas and fast-track a world that takes care of us all. Responsible entrepreneurship that will rub off on you. You'll leave our halls of learning wired not just for sensible science, but sustainable business too. A thinker, a breath of fresh air, a game changer, a global visionaire. Primed to keep progress on its toes, the competition on the run. our planet clean, safe, and secure. But wait. Forget the future for now and focus first on making the choice that will trigger the full potential of you. Enroll. And then, maybe tomorrow, the next big thing that rocks our world will be you.
To those of you who have come in search of answers, seeking inspiration and looking to achieve your aspiration, this is the place where you will learn to find the answers, where you will be motivated to discover your inspiration, where you will be propelled to realize your aspirations. With today's global challenges, the role of the engineer, the scientist, and the technologist is transformed from being the technical innovator into being the agent of global change. Our world-class resources and faculties, our cutting-edge facilities, our global partnerships with leading universities, our strong network with industry for internships and job placements, our worldwide research collaboration. These are the inspirations and the opportunities at UTP. Here, we nurture the analytical skills and intellectual capabilities of all who walk the UTP path. Here we culture the ethics and the attitudes that will shine in the real world. Here we expose ourselves to what it truly means to be human, to be a valuable part of society, to be the empowered people, the game changers, who will light up the path towards a better world and change lives for the better. At UTP, the torch is firmly in your hands. So hold it up high and let us together light it and let it burn brightly. Join us to seek inspiration and achieve your aspiration towards global prominence.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and good morning. Yang berbahagia, Profesor Teknologi Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim Abdul Muttalib, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Teknologi Petronas and Chairman of GLU Council. Eminent panelist, yang berbahagia, Profesor Dato Insinyur Dr. Kamal Nasharuddin Mustafa, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Tenaga Nasional. Yang berbahagia, Profesor Dato Dr. Mazliha Muhammad Suud, Presiden Multimedia University. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Roziah Omar, Presiden, Chief Executive Officer, Universiti Kuala Lumpur. Honorable guests, Senior Management Members of Universiti Teknologi Petronas, Universiti Tenaga Nasional, Multimedia University, and Universiti Kuala Lumpur. Moderator, participants, and committee members of 5th GLU Management Forum 2021, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 5th GLU Management Forum 2021 with the theme Sustainable University in the New Norms. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank our honorable guests, eminent panelists, and all participants for joining us today. Allow me to quickly brief you on the flow of our program today. We will begin with a welcoming speech by Yang Berbahagia Profesor Teknologi Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim Abdul Muttalib, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Teknologi Petronas and Chairman of GLU Council. The welcoming speech will be followed by a forum with our four eminent panelists. For those who would like to ask any question to our honorable panelists, you may post them in the meeting chat or at the Facebook live chat. Do not forget to mention your name, the organization or in the institution you are from together with your questions. You may also indicate if you would like to address the question to a specific panelist. Thank you. Honorable guests, eminent panelists, ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, we would like to cordially invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Teknologi Dr. Mohamed Ibrahim Abdul Muttalib, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Teknologi Petronas, and Chairman of GLU Council to deliver his welcoming speech. Please welcome. Sorry, Yang Berbahagia Prof, your microphone is mute. We can't hear you. Prof? Excuse me, Prof. Excuse me, Prof. We still can't hear your voice.
Accept my apology. Thank you, Cik Zulkarnain. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good morning. Yang berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Haji Syed Zainal Abidin Syed Muhammad Tahir, Group Managing Director Dagang NeXchange Berhad, Professor Dr. Lawrence Loh, Director, Centre for Governance and Sustainability, National University of Singapore Business School, Professor Dr. I.R. Iwa GARNIWA MULYANA, Rector, Institut Teknologi PLN, representing APERTI B.U.M.N, Encik IZHAM Abdul Wahab, Head Group Human Capital, DRB-HICOM Berhad, my fellow GLU Council members, Yang Bahagia Datuk Kamal, Yang Bahagia Datuk Mazliham, and also Yang Bahagia Datuk Rozia, distinguished guests, participants of the 5th GLU Management Forum 2021, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, let me extend a very warm welcome to all our honorable panelists. It is indeed an honor to host you at this event today. And on behalf of the GLUs, please accept our deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for graciously accepting this invitation to share your thoughts on the subject of discussion today involving sustainability at our 5th GLU Management Forum. And a very warm welcome to all the participants who are watching this forum live through Teams as well as Facebook. Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to note that through the joint sharing of practices and ideas and the undertaking of the various collaborative efforts, we as a GLU have now managed to position each and every one of the university into the world ranking list for QS and THE as announced this year. I wish to take this opportunity to congratulate my fellow VCs as well as presidents of the GLUs, as well not to forget their staff who have been working very hard in order to realize this. And I hope we will continue to strive together to bring the GLUs now up further. Although ranking and rating may not be the goal, as universities were established for noble reasons beyond it, but hopefully this will help us in a way to position GLUs in order to attract prospective students to study or conduct their research at the university, and at the same time attract industries to work with us. Yang Bahagia Tan Sri, eminent panelists, ladies and gentlemen, let me give a quick background on the Alliance of Government-Linked Universities, or better known as GLUs, which I have referred to before. We established this alliance in 2016 with an aim of deepening the mutual strategic trust and pushing forward pragmatic cooperation in areas of common interest between the members' university, namely UNI10, MMU, UniKL, and UTP. As an alliance, we collaborate in various ways, including student development activities, academic program, and joint research projects. This management forum, as a matter of fact, is one of our signature events, which we organize on an annual basis. And but apparently this is the first time that we are doing it virtually. Otherwise, we have normally done it physically. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's forum, entitled Sustainable University in the New Norms, was indeed carefully picked by the Council in view of the unprecedented challenge that the higher education industry is currently facing. As you are only too aware, we are in the midst of a global crisis. 2020 is a year we actually want to forget, but we know we will never forget. It will be remembered as an eventful year for a very long time, as the COVID-19 pandemic sent shockwaves throughout the entire world. It has impacted the lifestyles, and livelihoods of every single individual on the continent. No aspect of life is left untouched, and there are little signs that things are going to improve in the near future. Our economy is affected. People are worried about their life and livelihoods. Mental health issues are becoming a real concern. We were already confronted with issues and challenges at an increasing scale and complexity even before the pandemic. And with the pandemic, these challenges continue to escalate to the extent that our sustainability is now at stake. And the question that continues to haunt the higher education industry is, how much longer can we survive? And more importantly, what can we do to improve things? It is against this backdrop that we are here today. Despite the distressing realities of the pandemic, it has also brought us opportunities that we have never thought was possible before. Although physically separated, we are brought together online, and we can still gather inside, deliberate, debate, and network, all from the comfort of our own homes. Truthfully, I find this quite fascinating. So today, we have with us the experts and thought leaders in their respective areas to discuss and deliberate on the urgent actions we need to take, not only to survive this global pandemic, but to thrive in its aftermath and beyond. It is our hope that by the end of this forum, we will all be inspired with concrete ideas and solutions in our journey towards sustainability. In closing, let me again thank the panelists for being with us today and to everyone present here today. And of course, not to forget to the organizing committees. Well done. Congratulations. Kudos to all your hard work in making this event a reality. I look forward to a fruitful discussion today. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you Yang Berbahagia Profesor Teknologi Dr. Mohamed Ibrahim for the welcoming speech. The forum is about to begin. However, before I hand over the session to our moderator, let us view a teaser prepared. Honorable guests, eminent panelists, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to the next agenda, 5th GLU Management Forum will be presenting to you our 4 prominent panelists. Please be informed that there will be a Q&A session at the end of the forum. Once again, for those who would like to ask any question to our panelists, you may post your question in the meeting chat or at the Facebook live chat. At the end of the session, our moderator will read the question to our panelists. For those who would like to ask the question directly, you may activate the raise your hand emoji in the meeting conversation chat and we will attend to you for the Q&A session. Please keep the question coming and do not forget to mention your name, the organization, or the institution you are from together with your question. With that, I will now hand over the program to Mr. THIAN Yi Wei, General Manager, Corporate Planning Division, University Kuala Lumpur, to moderate this session. Please welcome. Excuse me, Mr. Tian, we can't hear your voice.
I think Mr. Tian must be facing the same problem like me. When you shift for us from the breakout room to here, we may need to ask him to leave and come back in.
our technical team is currently rectifying the issue, and we will get back after this with the forum. Thank you very much. Still waiting.
If you have a mind to upset the status quo with your big ideas for tomorrow's world, then maybe we're just the thing for the genius in you. For starters, every fellow here is brilliant too, hired to rethink how we think and prove that impossible isn't at all. We love their visionary points of view and how their top-tier ideas are helping us to expand what we know and don't know about our world. Working hand in hand, we're out to better the ways energy works for us, to market our inventive ideas and fast-track a world that takes care of us all. Responsible entrepreneurship that will rub off on you. You'll leave our halls of learning wired not just for sensible science, but sustainable business too. A thinker, a breath of fresh air, a game changer, a global visionaire. Primed to keep progress on its toes, the competition on the run, and our planet clean, safe, and secure. But wait. Forget the future for now and focus first on making the choice that will trigger the full potential of you. Enroll. And then, maybe tomorrow, the next big thing that rocks our world will be you.
To those of you who have come in search of answers, seeking inspiration and looking to achieve your aspiration, this is the place where you will learn to find the answers, where you will be motivated to discover your inspiration, where you will be propelled to realize your aspirations. With today's global challenges, the role of the engineer, the scientist, and the technologist is transformed from being the technical innovator into being the...
Sorry for the technical glitch just now. Holding up the valuable time of everyone. First and foremost, good morning and welcome to the chairman and members of the GLU and our honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start, let me introduce to all our panelists. Number one is Tan Sri ZAINAL ABIDIN, Syed Muhammad TAHIR. He is the managing director, he's the group managing director of Dagang NeXchange, or what we call DNeX, more properly known as DNeX. He started his career in Petronas and to the vice president of downstream marketing, and also served as managing director of Petronas Dagangan Berhad before he left for HICOM Holdings in 1995. And thereafter, he joined Perdua, our second national car outfit, as a senior general manager and was appointed as executive director in 2002 and promoted to deputy managing director in 2005. Thereafter, he joined Proton Holdings Berhad as group managing director. He also sits in RHB Bank and Islamic Bank as an independent non-executive. On the education front, he was appointed as chairman of the board of Universiti Teknologi Mara from 2018 until recently, January 2021. Okay, so Tan Sri have a wealth of experience, especially in the industries and also in education, being in the chairman of the board of Universiti Teknologi Mara. Our second panelist is Professor Dr. Lawrence Loh. He's the director of Center for Governance and Sustainability, NUS Business School. Prof. Lawrence received his PhD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and his thesis actually was awarded first prize in worldwide doctoral competition in Management Information System. He also leads several outfits sponsored by the government as well as in Singapore and ASEAN. Namely is the HISTR, the Singapore Governance and Transparency Index, and ASEAN Corporate Governance Scorecard. Prof. Lawrence Loh also is a lead consultant for information technology manpower as well as research and development manpower studies commissioned by Singapore government. He was chief facilitator to Singapore National Technology Plan, and he also consulted for Fortune 500 companies and many other international organizations in technology policy. Our third panelist is Professor Dr. Engineer Iwa GARNIWA MULYANA. He is a professor at Universitas Indonesia, and currently he is the rector of Institut Teknologi PLN. Prof. Iwa is an expert in high voltage engineering, and he is a member. He's a member to many of the organizations in Indonesia that focus on electricity, especially on high voltage engineering. And our fourth panelist is Encik Muhammad IZHAM Abdul Wahab, who is currently the head of Group Human Capital for DRB-HICOM Berhad. He has over 22 years experience in the field of human resource, project management, quality management, and consulting. Without much further ado, I think because we are a bit time constrained, so I would like to jump into our forum today. And the topic for today's forum is sustainable universities in the new norms. First and foremost, I think the COVID-19 pandemic have brought a lot of disruptions to the whole world, actually. And of course, universities actually was quite affected in many areas and many fronts. So the first thing that these questions actually will be for the three panelists, for Tan Sri, Prof. Lawrence, and Prof. Iwa to share their views on the following question. The first question is, what are the main disruptions and challenges to the education system, and how university may overcome the challenges to the supply chain disruption of COVID-19? I welcome Tan Sri to give his view on this matter. Tan Sri, over to you.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, Tan Sri.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah bil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala syafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Mr. THIAN, moderator, my distinguished, respected fellow panelists, my friend Prof. Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim, the Vice Chancellor UTP, Dato Prof. Dr. Kabal, Dr. Masliham, and then Dr. Roziah, the Vice Chancellors of the GLUC. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and a very good morning. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be here. It's always good to be associated to the universities again, particularly to UTP, because of my background in Petronas. I'm just to correct, I'm definitely not an expert in this field, but as a person who's been serving as a chairman of UITM before, I was, chairing the board in the midst of the crisis. So I do have some first-hand experience about what's happening. Now, to the question about, what are the main disruption and challenges that happen in the university? I think, first of all, Tian, the members of the audience, I think, much has been said about this COVID-19. It's very unprecedented. It has disrupted, everybody, from lives of individual, universities, companies, even to the government, and it's not isolated, by many ways to countries, but I think this is a global pandemic. Some have survived, and, have now back to norm, and some are still struggling. The question is, when is it going to end? I think, nobody really knows, but surely I think it will come to an end, and hopefully our lives are back to normal. Now, for the university, when this thing started in March, I still remember when I was chairing, the board. I think once, in my view, Tian, I think what's important is for us to understand what's happening to our ecosystem. As a university, you need to really understand, and any organization for that matter, you need to understand your ecosystem, your stakeholders that you are dealing with. So in the context of university, the first ecosystem, in ITM, where we have 160,000 students, the biggest ecosystem is the student himself. Now, the student themselves has been disrupted, not be able to come to campus, and UITM being the sheer size of the university, having about 34 campus, and some of our students are having to live in their own houses and in remote areas that doesn't have even access to connectivity. So can you imagine the kind of disruption that's happening to the student, not able to come home and not able to school, having to adapt this so-called new norm? And that's the one thing that we have to understand, because that, by understanding that, it then, makes us able to resolve the pain point or the constraint that they have. That's number one. Number two, we also have to understand at university, one of our key stakeholders is obviously the industry. We are measured in our key by university is about graduate and portability. How are they then accepted to industry? So industry themselves are changing. What we perceive as the need of an industry many years ago, has changed. So I think it's very important, for us to know what's happening in the context of industry in disruption. And even as we speak, THIAN, even a year and a half since the pandemic, the disruption still continue and still evolving. Nobody really knows to what extent it's going to happen. So I think it's very important to understand, to make sure that we are, able to comprehend. Because if there's a mismatch between what industry needs and what we are trying to do, then obviously we have a very, difficult situation of our hand. Now, third ecosystem and the stakeholders is also very key, is the government themselves. As you know, THIAN, UiTM, you are a public, an IPTA, a public university. Primarily, a lot of funding is coming from the government. So suddenly, Mr. Government tells you, hey, guys, you're not going to get any funding anymore. So the disruption is huge and enormous. And has a very big impact. So we need to understand and continually engage with the government to understand what are the constraints that we have. And surely you have been reading in the media how the government is thinking, the debt crisis and so on and so forth. I think that's our third stakeholder. The fourth major disruption, which sometimes we underestimate, is not about the external parties, the internal parties, our own community in the university, the professors, the lecturers, who are now suddenly, so used to going to class, conducting the class, with all this visual, and suddenly confined to their own home, their own room, teaching on the computer. So the feedback that we get, some adapt well, but some are pretty still in the mindset of the old school, so to speak, are having really problem to teach. This is where good professors, good subject matter expert, but cannot adapt to the new technology only. So that disruption is quite permanent sometimes, and some of them struggle to adapt, in a very big way. So now, in the context of the disruption, so I think that's very important. I think we need to understand, and in a business like what we are doing, we're also doing the same thing, scanning our ecosystem, what's happening to our customers, to our suppliers, to our network, and so on and so forth. Now, with that disruption, what are the challenges? Now, the challenge at the board, and I was sitting, one of the primary challenges, given the disruption that's happening, how are we going to ensure, that the quality of education still remains very strong and proper? We do not want the industry to challenge the university. Oh, now the people are not going to class. We have suspicion that whether your grades will be as good, the quality of your students is going to be the same. So we need to make sure that level of quality can be sustained and kept, even throughout this pandemic. Even though our students do not have access to the live education that they used to. So that's one thing, and the challenge that we have, and of course that requires a certain set of action. But the other challenge, I'm not sure about, maybe the GLU ni mungkin not as bad because they've got their principal companies handling them. But for the IPTA, like University and ITM, where a lot of funding relies on mainly from the government, the financial challenge is very real. Where we see our cash flow being affected, we make sure that we have enough money to pay for salary, and we have to subsidize, students that's been, working remote. Studying remotely, giving them data access, facilitate food and so on and so forth, because they are basically predominantly the B40s, which is the lower income student. So the financial challenge is very, very real. Now that we understand the challenge, in the next couple of minutes, I just want to share, I'm sure time is constrained. So how do we overcome it? I think, one of the quick thing that any organization in crisis is to adapt very quickly. So, UiTM at that point in time was already, a quarter towards going to go online learning. So we had to accelerate the adoption of online learning very quickly. We were lucky that we already had a platform in existence, but we need to quickly open up the technology platform, put content another way, and have, what we call massive training of our lecturers to make sure that they can adapt. That's number one. Number two, back to the constraint about, challenge about quality, we need to then review the content, make sure that the content becomes more relevant and easy to understand. And if the content is not adequate, we need to collaborate with, collaborators or content providers to make sure that the student then have access to much more real content, particularly when you go online. Thirdly, the need to overcome the challenge is to engage with industry. We are also concerned because students are graduating. Suddenly, they are look at industry has no unemployment. Nobody wants to take them anymore. And the biggest problem is when you have about 40 or about 40,000 graduating every year. You only certain people can go to do a master's and PhD. The rest have to go to employment. If they don't go to employment, then the chain of effect about poverty, about them not having enough money to give their parents become very, very real. So we need to then engage with industry, create that employment opportunity, and to some extent, what we had to subsidize the allowance to make sure that it's also not to become a pain point for the industry, because industry is also struggling. So I don't want to hire, but if you insist me, you need to maybe bear some of the cost. So we need to be very adaptive and flexible in the way and engaging to the industry is very important. The fourth thing that we need to adapt is making sure that every student have access to education by giving them devices. So we are lucky, we have about 500,000 alumni in UiTM. So we had to reach out to the alumni to get them help, to get alumni to come and help, and then, maybe, what we call do a bit of wakaf, endowment to provide notebooks and devices to a student that cannot afford it. Because once you have a parity of education and access, and then not all children will get the same level of learning. So I think that's very important to make sure that we don't have that gap. And finally, I think THIAN and members of the audience, one of the key things that we need TM is about fast decision making. The board is the governing body, of course, the vice chancellor. So we work very closely together. And over that period, I think the board almost sits every week, making decisions, giving empowerment to the vice chancellor to allocate funding, and so on and so forth. So, just to summarize again, THIAN, to answer to the first question, I think fundamentally for me is to understand the ecosystem has been disrupted. Second is to understand the challenges that we have. And finally, once you understand that, there are steps that, we have took to overcome. And I mean, the steps that I've just described here is not, unique to university. I think it's also applicable. You are running multinational companies, because everybody have to go through the same process. But, I think it's very important, in classics like this, it's always important to be grounded. Do not manage only from your nice Oval Office or, in your room. It's very for you to get to get the feedback from the ground, understanding the situation, and work with the community to do this. So I'll stop here then. I don't want to take too much time, and take a while to my fellow panelists. I hope that kind of answer the first question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you very much. That was very insightful from you. I think many of us are actually facing the same challenges. Not just UiTM. I think GLU is facing the same thing. Even though so-called we are under the big company, I think funding also and the financial actually become critical. And many of us actually, I believe, jump into the online actually more on emergency mode. Though we are trying to adapt agilely to put online platform into play. And we take note that in Malaysia we have some issues actually with regards to internet connectivity, which later probably Prof. Iva may be able to share with us whether they have the same issues actually in Indonesia. Prof. Iva, would you like to share, add on to what Tan Sri have said? Lovely. Prof. Iva, I think we couldn't hear you. Perhaps you may want to log out and log in again. I'm so sorry.
Prof. Iwa and Lawrence, this is what I did just now. I logged out and I logged in again just to make sure.
Unfortunately, I think we just had an update of the Teams, not us, but then Teams updated their system yesterday. And we discovered it this morning. We have this technical problem. We were running it yesterday, was quite well. Yes, log out and log in. Yes.
Yeah.
Prof. Lawrence, you Can you hear me, Prof. Lawrence? I think
Yeah.
you do need
Yeah.
to log out and log in back. We can't hear you actually.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Lawrence. Yeah.
Tan Sri, this was very interesting just now. I think Malaysia we have a bit of problem actually because the internet connectivity. We are quite a big country in a way. If you look at the whole Semenanjung, we still have quite a bit of rural area, and
Yeah,
many
that's
of
true.
students P40 actually facing this problem.
Mr. THIAN,
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah.
Yes, Prof. Lawrence, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really sorry. I'm apologize. My voice is not. It's not.
Okay, Prof. Yeah, okay.
My tongue is. I have the tongue is my problem. Okay. I try to understand. I try to answer your question. The COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of education system in history. It is, I think, the same with Mr. Shed. And the disruption affected nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 119 countries and all continents. Closure of school and other learning space have impacted 94% of the world's student population, up to 99% in low and lower middle income countries. This is a big problem for everybody, I think. And then the crisis is exacerbating the existing education disparities by reducing the opportunity for many of the most vulnerable children, youth, and adults, those living in poor or rural areas, like in Indonesia too, and adults, those living in poor or rural areas, girls, persons with disabilities, and forcibly displaced persons, to continue their learning. We can imagine. Learning loss is also threatened to extend beyond this generation and erase decades of progress, not least in support of girl and young women's education access and retention. Some 23.8 million additional children and youth from pre-primary to tertiary may drop out or not have access to school next year due to the pandemic's endemic impact alone. I try to make simple. I try to strike the point, Mr. Sian. The main disruption is, of course, is the will of the economy stop for a while, for a long time. Until now, Indonesia still have problems with the growth of the economy. As well as the education system that is not direct because the uncertainty of the pandemic ends. We don't know when the pandemic ends. Everybody reaction to secure for our life, to attack the pandemics. And the second, so that the emergence of distant learning, which not all universities are ready to do this. In all Indonesia, we, I'm sorry, not all universities are ready to do this, like the distant learning. Consequently, there was a decrease in the quality of learning. And the most declining is engineering and medical. In addition to learning, including practical for the engineering or for the medical. Research activity that require laboratory equipment cannot be carried out. Community service to implement technology has also stopped. And the interaction of university with other parties such as government, industry, and society, etc., is decreased. Maybe stop. So the challenge. This is challenge. How to get the challenge to overcome this then we must learn quickly the situation and condition during the pandemic. We must the quick the situation and condition during the pandemic. But we must to make list what are the problem, because I believe every country has the different problem. The development of enhanced distance learning, including supporting equipment, must patiently list the problem and solution programs, and we must arrange distance learning techniques. I think one of the knowledge of the knowledge to be developed is rearrange distance learning techniques. For example, we have the problem. This event has the problem with the voice. The chairman has the problem with the voice. Mr. Chef has this problem says, we never know. Sometimes we never know when the problem is coming. Communicate actively with the government about pandemic developments, and of course build relationship with industry in new ways. The question is, what kind of the new ways? I want to make interaction with the industry, but in this industry has the same problem. The communication, we make the communication with the industry by the distance, by online maybe. This is one of a challenge. How to communication with clearly. The global pandemic has challenged the concept of communication, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. THIAN can imagine in our country, have the 1,000 islands. There, many people is in remote area. One of the problem is communication. How to build the communication? Use the remote. Not all telecommunication is implementation in all our country. I think that is I can give the question, Mr. Tan. I hope this is to completely Mr. SYED. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Yuwa. Seems in Indonesia there's a very, very huge challenge at this moment in terms of education. What exactly the government of Indonesia have in mind, working together with universities and the industries to overcome those challenges?
I think that is this. The government give us the regulation, the new regulation, and participate to develop our education. For example, the government give the student of the push. Same money maybe push for SIM card. It is one of the government to participate to growth learning to make the quality, to make the rise quality of learning. It is one. And how about the industry? In the industry have the same problem with us. They don't want to everybody come to the manufacture. If we have if the student, or if we haven't in vaccine, for the vaccine. It is the problem with us. So I think we need the collaboration with the government and industry, and understand we can attack to the pandemic. I think it's my answer like that.
Thank you, Prof. Prof. Lawrence, perhaps you may share your experience with us in Singapore.
Okay, sure. Can you hear me, just to make sure?
Yes, we do. Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, distinguished leaders and friends. Very happy to be here. But let me just add on to what Tun Sri and Rector has said, because I think they have actually shared quite a lot. But I want to just immediately zoom on to some of the perhaps unique challenges that are faced by small country like Singapore with universities that are trying to reach out to the world. So I think when COVID comes, there are three areas that I believe will accentuate the difficulties that we have. First of all, a university like my NUS, National University of Singapore, is by nature, by definition, and by necessity, it has to be global. And number two, our nexus, our connectivity, proximity, intimacy with industry and enterprise has to be very, very close. And number three, I think this will even add to the challenge of COVID and pandemic, is the fact that NUS in particular, is both a comprehensive university as well as specialized university in several distinctive disciplines. So I think when COVID comes, it really hit us smack in the face. There are two areas on which we have to actually better and adapt. One is in the area of contents, and I believe Tun Sri has already shared some of this. But basically what we want to do is to make it even more relevant, embed some of the necessary knowledge, perspective, applications in the new world, new pandemic that's now going into an endemic, make it mainstream across the curriculum. So this is something like, for example, business school, say, for example, on the ground, one of the courses that I teach is, governance and sustainable business. That the pandemic is actually a centerpiece that's spread across. So it's just a small example. So I think it's very important. But the other piece, beside content, I believe the other aspect in the Singapore context, I think is very challenging, is the process, the delivery process, the student process. And I think, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned supply chain. Of course, supply chain refers to many things, technology, materials, but one of our greatest thing in the supply chain is student. I mean, we need international students. University like NUS, we will not survive without international students. So for 1 year, last year, even on the ground, even my personal experience in the classroom, last year, even for myself, my class was totally dry of international students, zero exchange students. So I mean the richness, that conversations and discussion is less enriching now with only, say, local students. And right now, the good news is even for this year, we just started semester last month. Sometimes, somehow the international students are showing up again in small numbers, but of course, before they even show up in the classroom, they have to quarantine somewhere for, depending on where they come from, it could be 2 weeks or even less. So I think these are the two challenges, content and process. And I think we really need to, in terms of content, remake the curriculum. Number two, in terms of process, we have to remanage. And I believe these are issues which were discussed in depth in other questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Prof. Lawrence. Perhaps we move to the next questions. These questions actually will be targeted to all the 4 panelists. The question will be how university may change their business model and reorganize and better manage their capabilities to ensure sustainability at this moment, in the midst of the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 pandemic. Tan Sri, welcome your view, please.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Tian. I think, when you are in a crisis mode, it's always, like, talking in the context of industry, like you manage a crisis, you need to have a very clear transformation plan, like how to turn around the business, turn around companies, and so on and so forth. So I think in university, sometimes, you need to ask the difficult questions. I think fundamentally to me, when we were also in UiTM, we discussed at the board, it's looking at the organization and the structure. I'm in the view 10. Sometimes, you have one structure to take a company or university to this level, but the same structure might not be relevant for you to take the university in a crisis at another level. Because, the dynamic of the business change, the dynamic of the environment always change. So we always have to, really take a hard look in the review. When we put the question, and the first reaction that we get is, oh, Tansi, you cannot do this because people will be out of a job, blah, 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 and so on and so forth, So I think that's not the intent. The intent of, looking in the structure and what we call right-sizing the organization is not about doing redundancy. Is to then perhaps, get better productivity, and then you can free up people to do other things for the university compared to what you are doing today. Because, as a business model change, we need to free up assets, rather than hiring new people to do, other, critical subject, matter. Why don't we free up some of the staff, some of the organizations, so that they become more productive and more focused? So I think, right sizing, in my view, and structure is always very important. So when you have the right structure, it's always then important to adapt to make sure that we have the right people. So I suppose in university it's not as easy. You got, deans, you got, vice, professors. And, we have no offense to any professors here in this room, but sometimes it's not easy to also manage professors, moving them around. So, but it's always trying to find the right, I always say the square peg to the square hole, and if there's a gap, we need to address the gap very quickly by upskilling those gaps. Because, if we accept that the reality, THIAN, that the world has changed, not adapting to change becomes a very big problem to a university. That's a reality. So I think the better we accept that reality, I think the better for us to organize and move forward. So I think, looking at the organization, freeing up the staff and upskilling, critical staff to make sure that they become more relevant and rich in content and knowledge in going forward in terms of digital, IT, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of change that I think at the university side. Then you need to change the behavior of the people in the university. Cannot be having the change, like, okay, I'm the university, you have to come to me, I'm, so and so. You need to reach out. You need what you call this outreach program, and reach out to understand, your customers, by calling them. I always think, and I always say, tell to my, to my board and the vice chancellor, seek first to understand before you be understood. So if you want people to understand, you must seek first to understand first. So you need to go out to industry, knock at the doors, engage. Hey, what's your problem? How can we help you? How can we collaborate? Even people that have been with you for many years, because their behavior will also change. So if your behavior doesn't change, then you're not going to adapt, and, before long they get tired because they got other issues on your hand, in their hand, to manage, So I think that's become very important for you to change the behavior. And culture, THIAN, is the biggest problem that we always have in any organization. And changing the culture in university. My experience in university like UiTM is a much bigger task, 35 campus, so many rectors and all that you can imagine. But nevertheless, the reality is the culture needs to happen. So we have a program called Cultural Change Management that we put, that was implemented, takes a bit of time, but, slowly things are changing. The third change that you need to make and to organize, and I think I like what Professor Lawrence is saying. It's about, changing the nucleus. You cannot be just a local university, you have to think international, global. That's where you need to then, link up to all your, counterparts in other parts of the country and focus on the new emerging economies. You need to focus on China, you need to focus on India, and you need to focus on the industrialized nation. Sometimes might be not easy, but don't go and focus to the small communities. I'm not saying that's not good, but you need to spread to be that your network, and it's always not about ranking. I always talk about Is ranking the biggest problem in your mind? I know, of course, for the university, ranking is very important, but you need to go and shift to look at not just about universities, but there are also companies. And as a chairman, when I start engaging with multinational CEOs that I know, they are welcome to collaboration. But like I said, Tian, they're not going to wait for you to knock on the door. You have to be a bit more aggressive, to route. So that's something that you need to adapt. And I think universities, people like UTP, of course, MMU and U10 and UniKL, you can maybe, I'm sure, leverage to your parent company or to make sure that you can get that access. That's one. Now, I mean, the other one is, of course, this financial control, discipline. Sometimes, I run the business. When I go to UITM, I want to put better financial regime control. Need to have visibility. So I think the Mandari, the treasurer, the financial controller, UITM has always been tasked to look at things in more granular. You cannot spend money as much as you spend anymore. You don't link to talk about expenses, talk about revenue, talk about how you monetize the asset, bring more revenue and things out of the box, in terms of how to create the accessibility. So it is a new thing that university has to face, because before they were over to rely on government support, maybe they take it for granted. But when, crisis comes, when that, so-called funnel has been stopped, now they struggle, don't know what to do. So I think this financial control becomes very important. And I mean, and it can be done, but it requires a different kind of skill set. Lastly, I think, in my view, Tian, in this global pandemic, and I think what the government is trying to do is to create an ecosystem in a university that encourages entrepreneurship and startups. I think it's very important. Malaysia is very weak in this startup, mentality. I mean, I think, I'm sure Professor Lawrence in US and understand, the ecosystem and the infrastructure is there. So we in UITM, we also trying to do the thing, invest in the people that we have, invest in the students that we do, encourage them to do startup, and provide that network and link, with venture capitalists, with private equities, with funds around, so that they can then try. Because here, you are in the world of being disrupted. Startups are mushrooming all over the place, and we have seen many stories how startups are coming from universities globally, and now they are making a fortune. So why can't we create the same ecosystem in Malaysia? Obviously, in a different context and a different scope and dimension, but still, something that we should be pushed. But to do that, it requires a different mindset. So I also encourage my professors in the UITM to get exposed to startup. We call venture capitalists to come to university, explain about startup, get to understand, allocate some funds, slowly get the hang. Sometimes you make mistakes, but that's what startup is all about. You need to take some risk, but the risk appetite of universities, I think, is very, very small. So we need to open that risk appetite a little bit, and so it's a change. So these are the things, Tian, and I'm just saying, things that you need to adapt, it's a learning curve for everybody. Even today, I'm still learning in how to adapt, but these are fundamental issues that I think if we don't create that change and make that reorganize itself, then I think your chance of being successful and improve, I think will be a little bit a bit slow, So that's my humble opinion, Yeah.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Do appreciate that very much. I think generally, I think universities in Malaysia, we have the risk appetite is, what should I say, is very much risk averse. So entrepreneurship not just have to be really developed in the kind of mindset. The university have to develop that to move forward. On that score, especially in entrepreneurship development, I know NUS have a very, very successful model. Perhaps Prof. Lawrence can share with us, especially your initial project started, I think, with Factory 71, is it, Prof. Lawrence?
Block 71, yeah, but never mind.
Block 71. It was supposed to be a block. The government wanted to tear it off. It was an industrial area, and NUS took it. And now I think it became the center for entrepreneurial development, not only for Singapore, but actually it's quite international. They have the nexus in many of the cities in the world. New York, Indonesia, and Jakarta, and with those big groups. I think in Indonesia, I think it is Salim Group, if I'm not mistaken. Can you share with us on that part?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think coming after Tan Sri is quite difficult. I think I like what Tan Sri said. First you have to understand, then you understood. So I'm listening to both Mr. Chairman you and also Tan Sri. I really understand some of the issues. And let me just zoom in onto what Chairman you have asked about entrepreneurship and also relate to your question about business model. And I say, our intent of NUS in Singapore to move into enterprise activities basically come from some years back with some very practical consideration. We need to actually gather revenue and resources, and I think with that as a starting point, I think this is really the heart of the business model. You need to have that financial viability. So and then we look around, and then in the early years, I think at the start of the year 2001. We actually transformed the whole university from just a teaching research university. We call ourselves actually a global knowledge enterprise. And that was the tagline at NUS in 2001. I know because I was serving in the university administration at the time. We were part of the team to redraft. So with that, we have come a long way. And I think, Mr. Chairman, you have said that, we have now overseas colleges in Silicon Valley, in Europe, in other parts of Asia like China, Japan, and even Indonesia. And many of these are, we locate some of these facilities in the entrepreneurial hub. And of course, you mentioned in Indonesia, we have as well, collaborating with the conglomerate there. But having said that, I think it's very important to bring the entrepreneur activities back to the classroom and synergize with all our students, because not every student will have a chance to go to Silicon Valley, to go to New York City, London, even Sweden, even Tel Aviv in Israel, China is Shanghai, Beijing, Guangdong. In Japan, we went to Nagoya. So not many students will have to go there, but so the challenge is how to infuse this mindset to the populace of the student body. And I think this is especially difficult now because in the last 1 year, practically, our university has pivoted to a Zoom environment. We are now not just teaching students, we are in Zoom, we are teaching Zombies. It's very different teaching Zombies and teaching students. You have to be very mindful. You don't have the touch and feel of entrepreneurship. Even in Block 71, which is Chairman you mentioned, this is actually our incubator of NUS. We have several. In fact, we even have a Block 71 now in Jakarta. It's called the same name. It was the rundown building by we call that the Jurong Town Corporation, just across from our university. The government was about to tear down, and then somebody came up with the idea, let it be a building of garages. So you have this industrial building. We have about 50 rooms inside. Every room is a garage. And some of we already have some unicorns coming out of that facility already. There's one actually done by business school, Carousel. It was born there. And then, it's now one of our unicorns. So I think it's very important to continue to be entrepreneur even in the pandemic. And I think that the challenge is, how do we now get students overseas? Right now, many of the overseas programs are suspended, but we are trying to restart the engine now because you cannot do remote control entrepreneurship. So that's a big challenge. Perhaps I'll stop here in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Lawrence. Prof. Eva, you have any view, things to add on to Tan Sri and what Prof. Lawrence have shared with us, especially Indonesian experience?
I'm sorry. I think I can add it is the government and stakeholders are encouraged, of course, to the following, like first, suppress transmission of the virus and plan truly for school reopen. And the single most significant step that country can take to the reopening school and education institution is to suppress transmission of the virus to control national or local outdoor, and they have the so to deal. Okay, and the second, okay, we have to protect education financing and coordinate for impact. It is very problem because the cost of now higher. We have the higher unit cost of education, more student than project, greater data availability. This is cost. This is we have the findings gaps. Findings gap after the pandemic. When the pandemic comes, we have the findings gap. So I believe the government is encouraged and participate for the university, and the church build resilient education system for equitable and sustainable development, strengthening the resilience of education system enable countries, and especially in our country, to respond to the immediate challenge for safely reopening school and position them to better cope with future crises. And the fourth, reimagine education and accelerate change in teaching and learning. This is the only responsibility, not only responsibility the university. It's very important the government to encourage, the government and the stakeholders to encourage. That is, thank you. Yeah.
So it is a paraphrase actually is the government, the universities and society as well as the industries must come together actually to move on. Yeah. Of course, it is actually now depending on the reopening of the economy, the schools, and the industry, so that probably from there we can move on faster.
Yes.
Right. IZHAM, your view from being an HR person with this COVID-19, as you know, over the last 1.5 years, we have been in universities. A lot of things actually is online and or blended learning. What's your view actually pertaining to the students that have been graduated recently? And do you actually foresee that there's any skills gap from the expectation from the industry?
Yeah, thank you, Tian. Can you hear me? Hi, Tian.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right. Yep, sure. Now, if you don't mind, Tian, can I just add one additional point on your first question with regard to the possible disruption and challenges to the education system? Right. And this is in my vested interest as a parent, that I would like the university to have a look at it in the future. I believe one of the foreseeable future that may disrupt and further challenge the education system is, in the lens of parents. Me, for example, and more parents like me are feeling the heat of the home-based teaching and learning system, and now looking at homeschooling as the ideal alternative to the disjointed online sessions that have left a lot of us as parents frustrated. So I think as homeschooling may have an effect, and homeschooling, the group that is under the homeschooling may grow significantly in the future, and then it may have an impact, an effect to the student admissions to the university. So I'm not sure how adjusted the student admissions for those students who are homeschool based, but I think it is imperative for universities to start preparing and make the necessary adjustments to accommodate and offer a more compelling value proposition for this new type of students. Because if you try to imagine the future, so if there is a step-by-step withdrawal from the education system at the primary school or even at the secondary school, there could potentially be a step-by-step gradual withdrawal from the university system because, as you know, the new generation of students that we have now, they're a bit more agile and a bit more adaptive and able to absorb information at a speed that was never imagined before. Kids are actually learning and having better command of the English language, for example, just by viewing YouTubes, even without going through a formal education system, being tutored and whatnot. So I think maybe why I said this is very important, and I try to relate this in a bit disruptive or different spin to our discussion today, because if you imagine a business, forecasting, sensitivity analysis, scenario planning, stress tests are some of the more common tools and activities that businesses normally use for short, mid-term and long-term business plans. So more often than not, these tools and activities have been proven successful in shaping our businesses. Yet, almost none of us anticipated the pandemic or the impact of the pandemic in our planning. When we did our planning, whether it is long-term, short-term in 2019, nobody saw it coming. So I think I would like to, the different spin that I would like to put to the discussion today is, the unusual thing is while businesses, governments, and possibly most of us have failed to foresee the pandemic or the impact of the pandemic, movie makers have actually anticipated this earlier on. What is the proof? Let's throw back to movie scenes such as the ones in Contagion, for example, or the simple fact that in the Avengers, Thanos wiped out half of the universe, and then now 4.55 million people have actually died because of COVID-19. So it is almost like a replicate of the movie scenes in Avengers and whatnot. So I think it is very important for us to reimagine our future, and I think Prof. Iwa just now mentioned reimagine our future in a fashion that is as imaginative as filmmaking, because I think we need to be able to develop scenarios for multiple versions of our future. So back to your question, Thian, with regard to the gap, I think the reality is this. The reality is it is going to be very difficult for us to quickly change our curriculum or syllabus or whatnot to make sure that we are preparing our students for the future, because, say, for example, certain skill set that was practical and useful before may no longer be useful now. So there is a need for them to unlearn and need for them to relearn new skills and whatnot. So one of the example that I can provide is so if you can imagine the accelerating trend in remote work and learning. So I think universities must immediately improve digital collaboration skills, because I think at the corporate level, this digital collaboration skill is different than digital dexterity or ability to operate software, ability to operate hardware and operating system is a bit different. This one is more, if remote work and learning is going to be the trend for the future and it's going to be a permanent trend, the ability our ability to have a better digital collaboration skills is very important. So these are the area and the space that I think university need to look at, other than improving the digital dexterity of students or even academicians and support staff and whatnot to be able to operate software, hardware, operating system. So and I think it is also very important for university to try to instill and promote this culture of learning. So learning must be something that we do actively rather than something that is done to us. So I think that's missing. So if we can instill that mindset and instill that behavior amongst the student, then even without making sure that we have the syllabus or the or review the syllabus ongoing as an ongoing process or whatnot, to make sure that we always catch up with the requirement of the business or the requirement of the current requirement and the future requirement. I think the fact that if everybody if everybody see learning as something that they actively do because it is already innate or embedded as part of their trades, then you can actually anticipate. So as HR, for example, I think one of the traits that I look is active learning and their learning agility, because when things keep on changing, when they need to unlearn and relearn or learn new skills, you do not have to be dependent on the organization or the university to provide them with the information, but instead they themselves can actually search for the information. So in my organization, for example, I have quite a number of very young talents that actually learn at their own pace. Even though they are graduated in the field of engineering, for example, they took it upon them to self-initiate, to go through this data analysis, data management, and they get themselves certified. And then they can actually add value to the organization. So I think it's more of creating that mindset and nurturing that behavior of learning. So that would be key, rather than pinpointing what are the specific skills or knowledge that a particular student is required. And maybe just to add to that, because I think
I think probably, if correct me, I'm wrong. I think I know where you're coming from. Basically, I think is number one, probably in your mind, I'm trying to make an assumption of trying to read. There must be a change to the education system where our students or our children have to be trained to be an independent learner.
Yes, correct.
Right? And of course, the issues that you brought up actually probably not in this forum. In fact, I plan if in the next forums that we have, actually the competition of accreditation between universities and the industries, as you can see now. For example, Google's, I actually can attend Google course and get certified, and yet the industry will be recognized. So eventually, where is the relevancy of the universities will become in questions in the future, right? I think those are the area probably we couldn't address in this forum, but I know what you're coming from. In fact, those are the horizons that we'll be looking at. Perhaps in the next forums that we will have the opportunity to do that, right?
Sure.
So can we move on to the next questions? Actually, is relating to this one as well, of the dynamic capabilities. I think some of you have been answered. It's actually what are the possible pragmatic approach that university should take? Not only just currently with the pandemic, and actually it's a post-pandemic. Probably it relates also to the little horizons that we're talking about, that how universities what are the pragmatic approach, not only to overcome the challenges, but to actually remain what we call that relevant in perpetuity. All right. Basically, we are talking about business sustainability, not now, but also in the future. Tan Sri, your view on that, please.
Okay. Thank you, Tian. Just maybe on one or 2 points that I want to. When we've been talking about business sustainability, about financial constraint, I think it's relevant. I think in all universities, I saw a message in the chat about government helping in not only private, public university, but also private university. My suggestion, Tian, is I think this financial constraint is real. Students, university rely on the students and rely on the income from the government. So government punya income pun dah kurang. That is going to depleting. Students now are not so forthcoming. Internet students are much less. They're not going to pay. And already students are demanding to pay less because they are go online and so on and so forth. The general income that we do are basically. So what do? We don't have a godfather that can give them more money. So we have to be creative and inventive. So one of the things that I always suggest, and I've had a chance to look and work with many universities, both in the ITM and before giving lectures in UTM, UKM, and so on. When I look at university, I will look at a place where they have a lot of what we call, capabilities, particularly in technology mining, IPs, intellectual property. Many research has been done, and some are, still a very infancy stage. Some have done some, front-end research. Some have done to prototype and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important for us to do what we call a mining of all the technology that we have within the organization. Sometimes we take this for granted, and I think you'll be amazed if you were to do the whole database of IP that is available, what stage of the IP today, and maybe shortlist a few that perhaps we can focus for commercialization. Because, particularly today, things are relevant in terms of robotics, in terms of artificial intelligence, digital, social enterprise, and it doesn't have to be engineering alone. It could be many things. So I think we need to take stock. Once we understand what's available within the university, either IP or even product from faculties, in food-based industry, even in UiTM, when I visited, one of our campus in the Negeri Sembilan, they have a new product, from the food-based industry, but it's nice there, but never known to anybody. So there are bits and pockets of pieces of here, but you need to then scan and understand your ecosystem very carefully. Then when you do that, then you said, what are the customers that you want to face? What are the industry that we can match? And if I were to contact the industry, I would like to collaborate with university, invest a bit of money, then take what we call an unfinished product to become a finished product, so that they can commercialize it. So you need to then connect the product with the market and with the commercialization unit. I think it's very important because university cannot do this alone. So if we can do it a little bit here and there, THIAN, maybe there might be opportunity to what we call generate a bit more income and provide that added what we call revenue stream. There's going to be a new source of income going for the university. That's one part. Second part that I want to touch is about doing so-called consultancy. I always believe my motto when I went to UiTM, I want to position UiTM to be the problem solver of the community. There's so many problems, in the community, in companies. Sometimes, if you are in a big company, you sometimes you pay a lot of consultant to solve major issues, but there are small problems that taking a lot of mind of your, a lot of time of your organization or from your resources. But these small problems or issues can be solved by university. You outsource a problem into the lecturers, to the student, final year student to do a thesis, to do a research, and that takes a lot of pain for me as a group managing director. So some of this work can be solved. But the cost of doing this is a fraction of the price that you're going to pay big time consultant to do it. So I'm also unlocking my asset, to do productive things. But to do that, the university need to organize yourself to be problem solvers rather than just, wanting to get grants, research and all that, So, positioning to be a problem solving, organization is a different thing. It's a different skill set. You need to package it properly, So I've been doing that a little bit for UiTM, when I was there and trying to, create that network, outsource my problem to me. I become your problem solver, long-term collaboration. So and if I were from the industry perspective, I would love to have that. So that's my point. My last point, on this is about environment. Whether we like it or not, we need to be, connected to the community, and we need connected to the visual about ESG. Today if we don't talk about environment, as a public listed company, people would not even invest in my counter if I don't talk about environment. If you go to the bank will not, international banking, nobody want to give you money if you don't talk about environment. Because it's such a sexy word that you need to do. So as a university, we need to then encourage what we call the creation of social enterprise. People work with the community, create small clusters of things. Sometimes you have to think too big like that. We want to be. I think I don't mind think big, but sometimes you need to start small too, Create your own small enterprise, your community, your kampong, in one district. Create a community. Thailand has done it very well. Bangladesh has done social enterprise. And there are things that we can learn from other communities. So social enterprise becomes very interesting. Social enterprise provides stability in the ecosystem in the government too. So we need to do our part. Second is about environment, so we need to take one step to create our student to be aware of the environment, do not pollute, don't do this. I tell you, if I have a conversation with a student, today, their concern about environment is very, very small. We cannot allow that to happen. We need to start doing that, and we need to start having conversation of environment, even at university level. Don't wait only, when you go and graduate and you go to corporate and talk about our environment. ESG should be a conversation today, whether we like it or not. It's real, and I think Malaysia is a bit late. So that, is the long-term changes that we have to make. And I think there are many resources with the university, among the GLUC or the IPTAs, the university community, for us to pick a different thing. In UiTM, we have quite a few. We've got assets all over the place. We've got a forest reserve that we are managing, water conservatory that we're doing, aquamarine in Langkawi that we do. So there's many things that we can do, and for UTP, of course, in oil and gas, ESG is like the biggest topic in the agenda. If we don't do this, then, we're going to be... So, but there is something, the hard question beyond just business sustainability is about sustainability of the environment of a social enterprise. That, I think, THIAN University must play a very important role beyond what it is doing today. I think it's not enough. So I do encourage the vice chancellors here and all the lecturers. Let's create that momentum in the workforce to create that we call that good social enterprise volunteerism system within Malaysia, which is so small today compared to what's happening to our neighbors and all that. But we have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of strength. Somehow we're not doing it. So that's my view, Tian, on this issue of sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Very insightful. In fact, I learned quite a lot from the institution that I came from. Actually, we started a lot of things. We recycle, reuse, those TR things. But that one actually not only to a lot of people, I think sustaining or pursuing the SDG is a bit costly, but actually pursuing SDG in the long term, in fact, in the short term, you can even see the profits at the bottom line. All right. Of course, the other thing I think, universities actually have a lot of IPs, and actually it's managing the IPs, whether you want to commercialize it, you want to sell it, and so forth, another stream of income. It's all these actually IP management strategies. And consultancy, of course, you rightly say, Tan Sri, of course, if universities become problem solvers, that's where the industry will come to the universities for solutions. All right. Perhaps on that note, I think Prof. Lawrence will be able to share more in his experience or what NUS are doing, because I do understand that NUS have programs, especially the business programs at the master level and above, the postgrad, where students actually being sent down to the industry actually to solve problems. I think something like mimic quite very much like what Harvard is doing in the master's program. Prof. Lawrence?
Yes, maybe it's actually very hard to come after Tan Sri because it's so insightful. I just have to find something extra, something different to say. But I think if you look at the broader, then I'll come to the specific question of Chairman. You look at sustainability in campus, or in universities, there are just two aspects. It's just a 2C. One is curriculum, and I think we have already in the first two questions touched about curriculum issue. Number two is campus. I think university have to set examples to the community, what they do. So all the little things that Tan Sri has been talking about, the habits, of course we don't want all the professors and students to be hugging trees, but I think it's very important for them to have that consciousness developed at the university so that this can be something that stay with them for life. And I think some of the Western countries have done it so well. Some years ago, I visited many universities, but there was one university in California I visited. There was this chancellor of that campus, which is the university president of the university. He told me, we were walking around the garden, and he told me, in that campus, it is so hard to chop down a tree. You have to apply for permission, fill in many forms. And he quipped to me, it's actually easier to remove a university chancellor than to remove a tree on campus. So I think, of course, we don't want to reach that level yet. But now coming back to, having that practical nexus with community, which is also part of sustainability beyond the environment, which is the social and even governance part. Yes, I think we have many examples at NUS, even where I'm sitting now at the business school. For example, these are small examples, not very big, but for example, in our undergraduate curriculum, we call it the BBA program, Bachelor of Business Administration. We have 2 module requirements for all students. It's called a field service project. So it's for credit. It could be done in 1 semester, 1 full year. They form teams of maybe 3 to 4, and they actually go down to the ground and solve a real problem. For example, some of the real problem right now, they are all startup related. So there are some ideas which I cannot disclose because I signed the NDA, non-disclosure agreement with the company. But one that I have not signed, is this thing like legacy planning. For example, now when people pass away from Earth, there are so much things that they left behind beyond just their money. Of course, money is important. So they want to come up with a portal, a system where you can actually, one-stop planning for everything you left behind, and pass it to the next generation. So they are, beyond just money and insurances and financial. I think they are also looking at, are there legacies you can left behind in your wisdom? What happened to your Facebook? What happened to your Instagram? So there are some real problems that are solving. So I think maybe I'll stop here, Mr. Chairman. I know time is very tight. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Prof. Iwa, if you have anything to add on.
Sorry. Important thing, we prepare for future shock by building back better. It is imperative that we not only recover from the pandemic, but that we use this experience to become better prepared for future crisis. To support this aim, we need to build our capacity to provide blended model for education. And we say Tansi has talked about the blended model for it. Provide blended model of education for the future. In the future, school should be better prepared to switch easily face-to-face and remote learning as needed. I think this will protect the education of students not only during future pandemics, but also during other shocks as natural disaster or adverse weather events. It will also create opportunity for more individual approach. Individual approach to teaching and learning, of course. With this in mind, it will be necessary to develop flexible curricula that can be taught in person or online. Additionally, teachers need to be better equipped to manage a wide range of IT devices in the event of future school closure. Offering short training courses to improve their digital skill will help. Using the post-pandemic period to rebuild education system and make them resilient is a priority at the same time. At this time, it is important to build a future education system that can make better use of blended learning model to reach all learners at their level and to provide more individualist approach teaching. And I think the pragmatic approach is to develop a distance learning system and face-to-face at the same time, with the number of students in the class is limited to at most 15%. Although the impact will require more classroom and even additional lectures. The program needs to be supported with completed learning facilities such as pad, camera, headset, and projector. Also require a good internet network. This will increase the cost of learning, but give confidence to the learning community to take in a new way and make the public believe that the university is able to overcome the problem under the new normal conditions and will certainly restore business sustainability. Interaction with the government as a regulator and industry as one of the partners is go slowly and make adjustment in new normal condition. For the tools, for the equipment of online system, the key to success in an online classroom is not what technology is used, but how technology is used and what information is communicated using that technology. That is, Mr. THIAN, I hope to add my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Iwa. Perhaps, Mr. IZHAM, you have anything to add on before we move to the next question?
Yeah, maybe very a quick one, Mr. THIAN. I'm looking at it as from the employer lens, and I believe university is also an employer. If we notice more than ever, now more than ever, our role as a university, which is also our role as an employer, have in a way become a social safety net, whereby I think there's heavier involvement in the lives of our employees as well as the lives of our students, to provide things such as mental health support, expand their healthcare coverage, providing relevant financial health support or just moral support as an effect of the pandemic. So I think one of the things that the university can look at is probably expanding real-time data collection in reference to information such as the health data of the employees and the students, morale of the students, even the state of the mental health of the students and also the employees of the universities. For what I believe this is actually for the purpose of monitoring and timely intervention. So that's one. And maybe from a business or commercial perspective, I think in times of extreme uncertainty, universities can start developing a clear baseline of our last known position. And then if we do not have the time to for a clean sheet exercise, what we can do is our existing strategies can be the anchor that we can use to systematically assess what has changed. And then at the same time, our recovery or renewal team should take stock in 3 areas, I believe. One is our financial assumptions. Number 2 is our ongoing initiatives. And maybe number 3 is to rethink our big strategic choices. So that will be a short response from me. THIAN.
Okay, thank you, Mr. IZHAM. Yeah, very well said. I think as a role of employer, of course, we can actually now leverage on the technology now. Actually, is to have collect as many relevant data as possible. Actually, to try to get an insightful into the well-being of our employees, because every day loss actually it costs us money. Okay. Anyway, since we are on this thread with regard to society and so forth, I would like to move on actually on the trinity of what I call the relationship nexus between the university, the corporations, as well as the community. Tan Sri, seek your view on this is how the roles of this trinity should evolve to effectively contribute to the advancement of the nation and to ensure university remain relevant in its core missions.
Okay, THIAN, thank you very much. I mean, probably I got to leave by 11:30.
Yeah,
another. Allow me just to perhaps put this in the proper perspective, THIAN. This COVID-19 teach everybody a very painful lesson, even me personally, where you have many good health, you go do things, you cannot even actually get anywhere. I mean, you are just a small, tiny little thing in this whole universe, that we have to understand. So I think what's important for everybody, individual, companies, university, it's to do a quick reality check. Number one. Number two, okay, and then, once we have that reality check, let's not dwell in the past. We want to move forward. And then we need to then understand the dynamic and the space that we're operating today. The universe is so much different when we're talking about 18 months ago. So I think this, what we call this trinity of university cooperation, or in some corporate people, you call it this triple helix effect, has to be even more integrated. And you cannot take them out, and if before it's loose, the need to become integrated is even more stronger and, and relevant today. So it's about positioning ourselves. You want to do business, you want to position. When you have a product, you understand your market. You want to sell a car, you understand what your customer. University, if you are in the operating university, back to my first answer, question, is about managing your stakeholder. Your stakeholder must be the government, industry, and community. So I think it's very important for us to start having that serious, what we call real conversation. Like I said before, seek first to understand before you are to be understood. Really understand the problem of the industry, the government. And I always believe, whether you're IPTA or IPTS, the private university, your role in economic and, development of the country becomes very, very relevant. You cannot take that away. Particularly in like UiTM, where we are so entrenched, with 160,000 students, 17,000 staff. The amount of sheer magnitude, the scale, it's entrenched, for many, many years. And we now have to be even more relevant. So engaging becomes very important, to understand and to look, and the same goes to community, the same goes to the industry. Now, the problem is, THIAN, if you want to understand the problem, out there, it doesn't solve the problem. It's how do we then change the way we behave and structurally. That's behavior. And, and I must say, corporate's not scale, I'm the MD, what I say goes, in a university, what the chairman says sometimes doesn't really important, So it's not so simple. I understand the dynamic of the university, but it is what it is, we need to be, you can't be in denial what you want to do. You need to be relevant. We have an amanah, which is our amanah and our responsibility to make sure that our student who's been entrusted by the family gets employed. That's very important. So we need to discharge that responsibility to the best ability. And it's nothing about you and me. It's about responsibility. And I take every responsibility seriously. So we need to discharge that carefully. So if it means that we have to change our behavior, so be it. If we have to change some rule, so be it. But we cannot be, having this, what we call, a towering, power base that we want to build, and to some extent, sometimes it does happen. So I think this is a very, important things that we need to, and the role of university become very, very important. Like I said, problem solving. I have this thing that when I give my talks in UiTM, I say it's easy to create value. I go out to university, I get employment, student, I create value because I get income. But to be a value creator is another skill that we need to have. So we want to develop our student are going to graduate later to help the nation, to help industry, not to create value, to be good value creators. We want them to create value beyond their ecosystem. Then we have this big ripple effect that will last decades and many generations. That's important. But today we meet people, you pergi cari kerja, you get your job and then you're fine. But we don't teach them how to create value to the community and to their life. And that's fundamentally, I think, is very wrong. So we need to create and look at our curriculum, how to equip our students post-COVID to make sure then we can become value creator. Then this issue about Trinity and triple helix will then be really, realized in my view, because it's no longer lip service. People go down, people know how to behave, people know how to create value, people know how to integrate. This core skill, soft skill, THIAN, because I come from a different product, I can tell you I'm involved I interviewed many students. I'm sure IZHAM also interviewed many students. I tell you, soft skills are a bit the gap skill. So, and I think the soft skill in the post-COVID is a bit different, from where we used to be. So I don't have the answer to all the solution. I'm sure my distinguished rectors and vice chancellors are more, well experienced, But I'm coming from a layman, from an outside perspective. These are fundamental issues that if we can't, and we need to start having real conversation about this. I think we have so much, blame the COVID, blame vaccine, blame the government, many things to blame, but we're not blaming ourselves. So let's just move on, get our act together, and people are now slowly adapting to new, and people are struggling in many different ways. So I think this integration, back to to your question, it becomes very, very real, very important, and we need to have platform, and forums like this, and that's why I would like to give my views. I mean, sometimes I'm quite critical, but I mean, it's not about being popular, you want to do the right thing to the community and contribute. So I strongly believe in this. And I think the role of the vice chancellor becomes very important. The board is going to key. I think lecturers who are here listening, I think your role become very important to educate. It's at the end of the day, it's an amanah lah. I mean, you take your amanah seriously, I'm sure you do the right thing. So thank you once again, THIAN, and my distinguished panelists for being me part of it, and my fellow vice chancellors. Thank you, and I will try to exit at 11:30. I wish everyone the best, and thank you. And my apologies for any shortcoming on any of my, sharing of your views. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Tan Sri. Thank you very much. Before you leave, of course, you have pointed out rightly. I think everybody work together sincerely. Actually, we must have that kind of. It's coming from the heart, and universities per se is actually must have a very effective outreach programs to the community as well as the corporation, and tie everyone together. If we have to be the gel, we be the gel. But I think working together in this, we'll be able to move the nation forward, especially with the government backings from there. With that, I think just now Prof. Tan Sri have raised about the soft skills and what will be the soft skills that the industry will be looking at. Probably I'll turn to Mr. IZHAM. Probably can give us some view on that part. Mr. IZHAM? I think he get disconnected, I think.
No, sorry.
Oh, all right, okay.
I'm here. Sorry, so the question is on soft skills. So how do we bridge the gap between where we are now? So I think it is a collective responsibility of the university and also the employer, because there's so much that the university can do to prepare the students. But I think maybe like what Tan Sri mentioned just now, what we can continue to further expand is to like how we are working right now, whereby there is a hybrid working arrangement. So maybe there is a need to review and potentially arrive to a hybrid learning management. So during my time, I'm not sure whether it is still true until today, because that was like 20 plus years ago. I think a lot of the effort is currently was currently centered on the traditional classroom training program. So even though there's quite a number of outreach programs in the form of program Bakti Siswa and whatnot, but I think in a way, even though it is supposed to be designed as an integrated solution to the approach of learning at the university, but I think the mix between the traditional classroom as well as the outreach program would need to be reviewed. So I think our goal should be to broaden the set of experiences and the horizon of perspective of our students, because if you can actually broaden that set of experiences, that will enable them to have better observation, and then use that observation as as a reference point for them to develop and further harness and nourish their nurture their skill set. So I'll give an example. I think for an organization, for example, if we have an employee who have been serving a particular one single organization for a long period, and then the only universe that they can see is actually the universe of that particular organization. So you will see there is a difference in terms of perspective compared to those employees who have been working with multiple organizations. And this multiple organization cannot just be any organization. It must be a blended of GLC, MNC, and whatnot. So similarly, I think the experiences that the students can maybe enjoy in the future, and this would elevate the value proposition of the university, is if we can actually have a blended set of experiences. And I think how this is possible to be done is maybe we should have a working structure or a working governing structure between commercial organizations, community, as well as universities to somewhat shape a structure or regulate this to for this to happen, because I don't think universities can independently do it on their own. There must be some form of partnerships between commercial organization, university, as well as community. So at the moment, I think a lot of our efforts, in a way, if not a lot, some of our efforts may be disintegrated in to a certain extent. So having that structure can it allow us to have better integration, because I always believe structure shapes behavior. So without structure, it's quite difficult for us to shape the behavior according to what we really want and align the behavior according to what we really wanted. So so maybe it's almost like, if you look at the government, because in the time of crisis, they come up with majlis, pemulihan negara, for example. So maybe something of that sort, with a very clear purpose, very result, a targeted result, as well as very clear set of accountabilities and responsibility. Because I think every single party that is part of the working structure need to have some set of accountability. Otherwise, my worry is, the burden will fall back to the university alone for the university to make it happen. So I think it has to be collective accountability and responsibility of every party in the Trinity format.
So basically, is that you mentioning actually everyone have a role to play, and at the same time is collectively to be accountable.
Yeah.
For the success. Prof. Lawrence, your view on this, please.
Yes. I think I want to contribute a small point. Maybe not so small. The more I think about it, it's actually a very, very big implication for university. And I think when we talk about Trinity, and also, looking at the soft skills, it's about really the very existence of universities. Why do universities exist? What is the purpose? What will make it obsolete? What will make it vulnerable and disappear? And I think if you look at the pandemic last year, it really accentuated all the factors that might even, expedite the obsolescence of universities. And I think it's very important. Because, just now we were discussing, one of the panelists mentioned that, in YouTube, you can actually learn everything you need. In fact, I actually did that before. In YouTube, I can curate a whole MBA curriculum just by YouTube. Of course, now we are talking even about MOOC, the massively open online courses, Coursera, EDX. So what should university do going forward if they cannot respond to some of the existential threats that are facing us? I mentioned us because all of us here are universities. And I think the mitigating factor, in fact, I would say that the savior is actually the Trinity or the trilogy of community, of cooperation, because in YouTube, you cannot replicate the community. You cannot replicate the cooperation. So if university were to exist into the future, it must leverage on these touch points of the community, touch point of the corporation that cannot be emulated by all the online platform. And this is the only reason why we can continue to exist going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much. Prof. Iva, do you have anything to add on before we go to the next session?
Okay. I'm worried about my answer because what the meaning of the Trinity may be a different meaning for me. I hope this answer is accordant with your questions. And principally must understand the philosophy of development, which is that at first we content. I mean the Trinity, triple helix. This is the other main. This is it. I'm worried what's the different meaning. But the Trinity, what I mean, triple helix, which is academic, business, and government synergy. Then develop into after triple helix, we can go to into quadruple helix. Quadruple helix is consisting of academic, business, government, and civil society synergy. Plus, this is at the civil society to triple helix. Currently, with the new normal situation, the right thing is to develop pentahelix. It is a pentahelix added with communication. Quadruple added communication. It is expected that the university is developed towards modernizations, intensive student in industry, student get competence certification and build innovation. I hope the result of pentahelix is by strengthening the financial system and reinforcement, developing supervision, developing telecommunication, building digitalization, improving the image of the university, and everything is done in an integrated manner. I'm sorry, Mr. THIAN, maybe this is different meaning of the Trinity for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Exactly. I think that means as the element of the nations, I mean we have to work in an integrated manner so that we'll be able to what we call to have the synergistic effect and to push up the helix effect so that we can move up faster. And the following sessions actually is more related to our core missions as universities. And of course, I think this discussion will focus on both Prof. Lawrence as well as Prof. Iva. Okay. Now with the pandemic now, as we have heard just now many a times, blended learning, teaching online, and so forth. Probably perhaps I start with Prof. Lawrence first. How teaching and learning will evolve and leverage on the latest technologies to deliver, including personalized learning. I think this is because you see, Prof. Lawrence, we have everything. We have we have the pick of car, we have the pick of oil, and now we probably come to the level of the pick of education or teaching and learning. We used to have classroom teaching and so forth. Now we have to move on. So what's your view on that part?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I think in the last 1.5 hours, we have discussed all the big ideas. Maybe now let me personalize what I'm saying by looking at some of the experiences of the real professor, the real teacher on the ground. And I believe many in the audience here today are, beyond university leaders. They are all faculty members who are actually, it is where the rubber hits the road. You are actually facing students. I mean, now actually not so much facing students. They are sometimes facing the computer screen. So you think one of the first thing we do on the small example is, let's say NUS, at the start of the pandemic, maybe when it hit us in Singapore quite big was in the second quarter of last year when we have in Singapore we call it a circuit breaker. In effect, it's actually a lockdown. Suddenly everybody scrambled, and we took sometimes suddenly everybody start to carry their computers home and teach and totally clueless how to do an online teaching. But we just brought our computers home and we start teaching trial and error, but well said and good. So come July last year, something very interesting. The university came back to life. In fact, I'm sitting in the office now. I've been sitting in this office since July last year without stop. So far, I hope it will happen non-stop. It's one of the best kept secret. We did not close down the university, but we went from total Zoom at home, and the policy of our business school is we want to have hybrid. We made a very bold decision when the rest of the university are still Zooming from everywhere. Our business school decide to deviate from university policy and say we'll just do hybrid, have face-to-face class with safety distances. So I think that bold decision we made is quite important, and I think going forward, the pandemic is not going to stop. In fact, it's going to be endemic. I think we cannot just stop our heartbeat altogether. We got to move on going forward and develop new skills. So just a small example, during the whole transition from Zoom to hybrid, because hybrid you still need to have a students at home because many are on quarantine, some are overseas. One of the very small things that I observed and some lecturers told me is, in the past, you can be just coming to classroom, you don't have to look good, your body language is good, you engage students. Hybrid and Zoom environment, the most successful professor is one that is videogenic. You have to look good on video. So, so we scramble, some of us go for facial, some go for hairstyling to look good on video, go for professional courses to look good on video. I have so far not succeeded, which is so far, I'm not been looking good. So it's a disadvantage for me. So maybe I'll stop here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Prof. Iwa, you will add on to that, Prof. Iwa?
Okay. I think, sorry. An important element of the silence education system is the flexibility, which relies on strong articulation between level and type of education, but also the capacity to mobilize alternative mode of delivery. Hybrid learning offering flexibility and quasi-individualist learning pathway for learners requires a mix of pedagogies and approach, and also the mobilization of alternative pedagogical resources from the national and international platform. That is, but hybrid learning poses challenge to the recognition of learning, with a view to safeguarding integrated system. Stronger linkage should be developed between formal and non-formal structures, including recognition, validation, and accreditation of knowledge and skill acquired through all types of learning. This strong linkage will allow education system to become more equitable and inclusive, as well as more effective in fulfilling their mission, more efficient in their operation and use of resources, and better equipped to serve the needs of their communities and society at large. I can edit the next question, Mr. THIAN. Thank you.
Okay. I do understand that, especially the technical courses, especially those involve a bit of a substantial amount of hands-on, which the COVID-19 brought huge challenges to that. And well, to the panelists, but what do you think that whether this one can be substituted partly with the those augmented reality or virtual reality or even XR? Will they be able to actually reduce or become more effective for the technical teaching? Prof. Lawrence?
I think to some extent, you can see now, in fact, not only because of the pandemic, a certain substitution effect going on. Branded learning is one, because in the past, our classroom interaction is now never content dissemination. The students can efficiently get it from somewhere else, in the video, in sources, or from Google search. Professor Google is the greatest threat to the professors. I mean, now with Google, when you teach in the classroom, the students are with the laptop, Googling what you say, while you thought they fact check you, and when you say something wrong, they put out the hand. Google say this, you say it wrongly. So, so the content part is now quite obvious. Put it aside. But now it is the interactive skills, interactive learning that is now the crux of the education process. And this will involve a different mentality, mindsets of the student, but more importantly, different skill sets of the lecturer, of the instructor. And I think that this is where I'll say a lot of this connectivity happens, because for many of us, we came from, PhD programs, in my whole life, in a PhD, in master's program, we never learn how to interact, how to teach. We just know how to do more content creation. So, so I think that's a disjoint. And I think going forward, precisely because now we are on the deep end of the pool, trying to, do that adaptive learning experience for the students, but we are all learn in a content-oriented educational era. I think the next few years will be going to be very different. As I said just now, if the lecturers, the professors don't make it in the classroom in terms of this new mode of learning, it will jeopardize the purpose, the existence of the universities very, very much, because we'll be totally replicated, substituted, and made obsolete by the technology and by Professor Google. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. That's actually a very valid point. Okay, let's move to the next question. Actually, now, as we know that one of the main role or the core mission of a university is research. That is actually saying that coming out with knowledge creation, and from there we can actually disseminate out. Now, we apply research. I mean, naturally applied research when you work together, especially with the corporations or whether it's even with public or private organizations, you actually naturally attract more fundings for that. Will this actually will further push blue skies research to the side? Blue sky research is normally things that there's nothing, is very theoretical, but those are the things that build up for the futures. For instance, what we are having now, all this, non-wire charging type of handphone, things like that. These are all the theories actually put out by Tesla many years back. All right, we are using back all the principles and so forth. So, Prof. Lawrence, what's your view on that?
Yes,
the blue skies research being pushed away?
Yes, it is one of our favorite topic at the professor level, and of course at the institutional leadership level. We talk about blue sky research, and I think it's very necessary to continue that, what you call the blue sky research, or maybe to put it in a better way, basic research. Okay, yeah. Okay. Anyway, okay, basic research. I think, but I think going forward, I think this blue sky research is also being threatened. It's now we don't need to have too, or maybe emphasis on this pie in the sky research. I think the blue sky was literally disappear because of our pollution and our degradation of the environment. So I think beyond the blue sky research, we need to have green earth research. Green earth research means something very practical, very, very down to earth for us to use, and very, very sustainable. I think this is the missing link now that will need to augment. So green earth plus blue sky will be equal to the longevity of university. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. That's very good. Prof. Iwa, you I believe you have something to say about this on the applied research as compared to the basic research.
In attracting applied research funding from the public, a special approach is needed by demonstrating the readiness of university in producing applied research based on blue sky, including green energy. I mean blue skies, including green energy. Okay. We know that we are also facing a situation of decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization. So the direction of applied research refers to these three conditions. And what are the main pillar of evolution? First, IoT, Internet of Things. The second, big data. Third, augmented reality. The fourth, cybersecurity. 5, artificial intelligence. 6, additive manufacturing. Simulation, 7, simulation. 8, system integration. And 9 is cloud computing. So, of course, learn all the pillar of the industry 4.0 will become more. So again, I want to understand that. I'm sorry. We know to understand meaning of era disruption definitely. An era where there is a situation on industrial movement and very fast job competition, changing the old pattern to new. The scope of change is wide-ranging from the world of business, banking, transportation, social, society to the equation. Requires, this is the answer to this question, requires a new strategy, innovative and creative, so as to produce a new business model that is strategic, encourage education toward the digitalization of the education system, changing the role of lecturers and the interactive of lecturers and students in learning. I think that is my answer, Mr. Tia.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the sharing. And the last one actually, last questions actually is quite interesting. This is actually related to internationalizations. I think earlier on we have discussed, I think even Prof. Lawrence has pointed out, because of pandemic and we have problem actually getting international students in because of all the restriction in movement between countries, wall being put out within countries and so forth. Now, the way forward actually, how is internationalization? We used to have like mobility and so forth, and mobility seems to be a bit what we call that, not quite possible yet for most nations, including Malaysia. I think even though the government actually says, yeah, we open up, the foreign students can come in, but you need to go and quarantine and so forth, and those actually will have a cost implication. Will the internationalizations will take on the liberation of education in most countries? For instance, in Malaysia, we have foreign universities campuses being built here, as well as I think in Indonesia as well. Over the last 2-3 years, I think there are quite a number of Australian universities, especially opening up their branch campuses in Indonesia. All right. Perhaps just like I think NUS as well, you have many collaborations, many places around the world as a learning center and so forth. So is that going to be the way forward actually, where traveling is no longer really what I mean is traveling back to the main university campus where they can follow the programs actually anywhere in the world? Which is, I think, also we are looking at the future horizon, where you probably may not need to step into the university most of your time. You probably come in very, very little of the time, but most of it is getting your education anywhere, anytime. Prof. Lawrence, on that part?
Okay, let me answer in this way. I think the key question facing all of us now, perhaps in this audience, is, is globalization day. I don't see a lot of international students. Literally, I'm not so used to seeing a campus without seeing blonde hair, blue eyes around. They're very good. So, and I think they're fabulous students. I like them, but for 1 year I miss them. They are showing up now. They show up in the classroom for many of my colleagues. So it's, I think, very good. But I think the more important question is not so much how we deal with internationalization, bring students here. I think what is fundamentally even more important is that internationalization for university has to be redefined, reconceptualized, and re-understood. The word internationalization does not mean that you need to have a pile of fresh literally coming in through the airport, going through quarantine, and then showing up at your door in the university. I think going forward, I think we need to actually recast this conventional understanding of the word internationalization. It can be actually done even virtually. There's no need to say that they need to travel here. Of course, that human element is important, but I think going forward, we need to actually be realistic with the times. Sometimes we can do things totally virtually. I even done a piece of consulting work with an organization in Myanmar, actually totally virtually during the pandemic. I have not seen the person in real person. He has not seen me in real person. We interacted through Zoom. I finished the work and he paid me. Literally, I mean, it's all based on virtual trust, and I delivered the work, and then I trust that person, and he delivered the payment 50% first. And then also, I mean, just a small example, it means that things can be done. Transaction can be totally done virtually. Now I'm taking totally Zoom classes for classes in China. Of course, you have to do it very differently, cannot have interactive rooms physically, but we have breakout room in Zooms, and I think to a certain extent, that replication of experience is quite possible. Okay, I will stop here, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Prof. Iwa? Prof. Iwa, your view on top of what Prof. Lawrence has mentioned.
Yeah, well, I didn't mention. For internationalization, especially, there needs to be trust between country that someone which has been vaccinated can be said to be free from viruses. I have the opportunity to live in another country. Everybody have the opportunity to live in the other country after has been vaccinated. This is important because international students should get the opportunity to study anywhere. Maybe not only students, maybe everybody want to go to somewhere. Likewise, academics and research, the Institute can conduct research collaboration with university in other countries. This is we today now we difficult to make the collaboration research maybe with you, Mr. Chair, and people the other university, because they are not the trust. They are not the trust about the someone has been vaccinated. If if everybody, if the government, if every country trusts about the vaccinated or the vaccinated, I think we can collaborate, we can grow study, student study in anywhere. This is, I mean, the internationalization. Thank you, Mr. THIAN.
Thank you. We are actually coming almost to the original schedule of the time, but because there's some technical glitch just now, probably we'll extend another 50 minutes. And I think now probably we may receive questions from the floor if there's any. We have one question here actually. This is actually from an audience by the name of Shida from I think this is actually from this is from UniKL Business School. All right. He has a question asking is question one is, what will be our suggestions or what is our view in encouraging the higher learning institutions in exploring new revenue streams in R&D perhaps I think this one probably related to applied research and so forth. I think this one, Prof. Lawrence, you may want to answer this.
Yes, I think it is something quite critical now, particularly for many universities which are universally, including in Singapore, constrained for resources. And I think it's also something very pertinent for the 4 GLUs. You know, even though you are government linked, it does not mean there's a perpetual link to the big bank of the government. I mean, you still have to do your own work. So I think it's something very important, exploring alternative or even unconventional revenue streams in NUS, as I think I have shared just now. For the last 2 decades, we have moved the university from a conventional teaching research university to something what we call a global knowledge enterprise. And the word enterprise usually means that, you know, we are now looking for relevance, we are looking for resources. So one of the key things we do is how do you improve the nexus between teaching and entrepreneurship. So for example, many of our classes have a very strong entrepreneurial bent, and I think it's something quite pertinent, especially in the recent setting when we are now talking about startups. You know, the word startup, as a term was not in our vocabulary. No university used the word startup even as recent as 10 years ago. But now it is something all my students in the bachelor class, they are all when they come to class, they are all talking about the new entrepreneurial idea. Many of our students are now actually not writing resumes; they are actually writing business plans. I think I told them every time my first class, in this class, when you go into the workforce, don't just write your CV, write your business plan. So I think it's something very important. And I think for universities, we can actually tap on some of the student work, faculty work. Many of our faculty also have innovative arrangement with the university where they can do startups at the same time they partake in the profit. The university take equity ownership. So that there's a win-win for everybody. So the main important thing is revenue stream for university. Make sure it's win-win. The student win, faculty win. Otherwise, there's no incentive for them to do the hard work for innovation. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you, Prof. Lawrence. Exactly. That's the point. I think it's a win-win situation. In fact, I think University now is under pressure to actually to widen their revenue streams, and like applied research is one of them. Even contract research, as it is. Perhaps Prof. Iwa, you may want to share your experience with your institute, or in fact, Universitas Indonesia.
Sorry, I think strengthening the resilience of education system. We have to focus for equitable and sustainable development. As long as I know, that is first focus on equity and inclusion. Make sure to build back resilience and reach all learners need to understand and address the needs of marginalized groups and ensure there is equality and continued education. That is the focus on equity and inclusion. And the other hand, we need the reinforced capacity for risk management at all levels of the system. Capacities are needed at the individual, organizational, and institutional level to withstand emergencies. This includes capacity to develop and implement contingency plans, such as alternative education pathway to mitigate impacts. And ensure strong leadership and coordination. The multitude of actors needed to respond to and mitigate the impact of crisis can lead to duplication in efficiency and confusion in the absence of strong leadership and coordination. So I believe, and we must ensure strong leadership and coordination. And the last, enhance consultation and communication mechanism. I think that is my answer, Mr.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Prof. Iwa. The other questions actually is more meant for, or not really, just for Encik Izzah. But I think this is pertinent to everyone. is actually during this pandemic, how do you maintain your staff commitment and loyalty, especially in the sense of belonging and working towards to advance the missions of the universities? Prof. Lawrence, you want to share what NUS doing successfully?
Oh yes, I think that this is often a forgotten aspect of staff, during the pandemic, particularly when we, have insist on work from home for the professional and administrative staff. They were literally working from home. The teachers, the faculty were allowed to come to campus anytime because we have real classes, but the admin has to have other arrangement because much of the admin work can be done from home. So I think it is quite important for both categories of human resources in university to maintain that integrity, and I would say actually the more important word is sanity. That sanity is the precursor to have commitment and loyalty. If they are not well, so mental wellness is one of the programs that NUS have for the staff. I think it's also in many other places in Singapore. I think Malaysia too is focusing on this. After more than 1 year of cramp down and limited, restricted social behavior, movement control orders, after so many months, I think in Singapore we have what you call the heightened alert. I think almost everybody is heightened to be almost crazy now. So I think it's very important for staff to have the morale, to continue to have that professional development opportunities, for faculty to continue to be able to do their research and teaching well. So we have a lot of adaptational mechanism to transit and to pivot many of our faculties to the new teaching environment. For the students, we welcome back them to campus well, have safety measure, assure the students. Even sometimes professors will even have to assure the parents. I mean, I even last year I had one parent who did not allow the daughter to come to campus because they say it's not safe, so we have to do a lot of assurance exercise. So I think it's very, very important that we do this so that we can continue to train, more importantly, to retain the good staff, because even in the pandemic, mobility somehow has been happening. I mean, they can go back to their home countries, and it's not that precisely because pandemic everybody is stuck. For good professors, they are still internationally mobile, and they can just go and then leave everybody in the lurch. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. I think we're coming to the end of the forum, and before that, I just want to sum up what the key points that we have discussed, we have shared in this forum. Just to recall some of the very key points is that number one, I think there are a lot of challenges facing not just the universities. I think everyone, whether it's a corporation, individuals, families, and these are the things actually contributed a lot of difficulties to the nations. All right, and as we say that just now, the systemic disruption have changed the way we do the way we live our life, including business, including corporation doing their business, as well as universities delivering what they're supposed to do. And that for say to say is actually we also listens that we have to be agile, basically that to adapt to the current situation. And of course, I think during the 1.5 years, everyone is or every organization is running on a crisis mode. I think now actually it's about time that I think most institutions or probably universities already have put in place what is going to be done in the next midterm, and of course they are planning for the long term as well. Since I think COVID-19 has bring out many possibilities. I think like branded learning and probably MOOCs. I think one of it is MOOCs will be coming back as a mainstream again. As I read the other day, there's actually I think it's a Singapore company that actually helped to set up the next platform, digital education on a digital platform in Uzbekistan. If not mistaken, I think they signed up probably about almost 50 or about $200 million to set up for 2 universities, so-called the next era universities, global universities in Uzbekistan. And we also see that for the sustainability of business, we're no longer just talking about financial sustainability. We were talking about the United Nations SDG goals as the community and at large become more and more aware of the sustainable development goals, and these have tied into so many things that Tan Sri Saizana have mentioned just now. In fact, even the bankers, the financiers actually looking at that, whether you are doing the right thing so that extending the money to you. And rightly pointed out by Prof. Lawrence that these things have to be built into the curriculum, and it become a way of life. Not only the students are learning it, but then actually living it in the campus, so that we can bring up the next generations of environmental friendly or environmentally aware society. And of course, in the other thing is that for the nexus of the community, the corporations, and the university, there should be an integrated efforts in getting the things done to ensure that the university will remain, not just the university, actually, including the nations, to remain strong. Because as a university, I think our core missions actually is to produce or to actually to give to produce to the nations the manpower, and for that to happen, that we need the cooperation from the industries as well as the community. And perhaps this one could be done with more effective outreach programs within this tree, of course with the backing of the government, so that we can have we'll be moving in one direction, probably speaking one language at the same frequency. And last but not least, I think as far as the core missions of the universities in terms of teaching and learning, there will be a lot of changes to that. As the panelists have pointed out, we have to leverage on the technologies. There's one. Of course, at the same time, it's actually probably we are talking about the new era or the new school or the new crops of the human skills or soft skills or the HR 4.0 that we need to enhance, especially the current crops of staff that we have. They need to be trained and upskilled, so that in the coming years, I think there'll be more challenges with the more savvy, tech-savvy students coming into the universities foray. And of course, research will be the main. You still will remain the main agenda of all universities. In fact, research is going to be another stream of incomes for the organization. And as far as internationalizations, I think I'll call, as Prof. Lawrence rightly put it, the globalization of educations. Probably there'll be a new landscapes coming up. As I mentioned just now, in fact, it can be leveraged on the technology platform. Apart from that, before I end it, probably in the next forums, we may want to look into the new horizons. One of the horizons will be with the MOOCs and micro-credentialing MOOCs and so forth coming up. It may reduce university tuition fees, probably. There will be a very, very competitors to us as a university. And as university move towards that with that competition, how are we going to sustain? Especially just now, we did mention that there's competition between accreditation of skills and knowledge and skill, because we have seen now there are big corporations actually having certifications of knowledge and skills, like Google's doing it. So how universities are going to what they call, are we going to face that and overcome those challenges? Probably those will be in the next forum. And before we end it, I just remember a quote, because this one have to do with all about sustainability of the university. I remember this quote, but I can't remember exactly who mentioned it. Probably I need to Google and see. I haven't asked Uncle Google yet. I remember very well, because it always says that revenue is vanity. Revenue is over the top line. Big revenue is always vanity. Good to look at, nice to look at. But actually, profitability will be the reality. If we have big income, but then no profit, of course, we are not able to sustain. But last but not least, cash in hand actually will be the sanity, because without money, I think most of the things that we plan to do will not be able to move. With that, I will end the forum, and I would like to thank the panelists very much for spending your valuable time and sharing with us the insights of today's topic. And thank you very much. I hope that the participants you have gained much insight into what we have discussed just now. Thank you. Hand it back to the MC.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Haji Syed ZAINAL ABIDIN, Syed Muhammad Tahir, Professor Dr. Lawrence Loh, Professor Dr. Insinyur Iwa GARNIWA MULYANA, Mr. IZHAM A.B. WAHAB, and Mr. THIAN Yi Wei for the informative session just now. Honorable guests, eminent panelists, ladies and gentlemen, let us now view a video montage prepared by the organizing committee of 5th GLU Management Forum 2021. The 5th GLU Management Forum 2021 has now come to the end. However, before we end for today, we would like to invite our honorable guests, eminent panelists, and everyone participating in this forum via Microsoft Teams for a group photo. May we have everyone to switch on your camera? Can we have everyone ready? Technical team, are we ready? Okay. On the count of 3, 2, 1, please smile. Okay, thank you, technical team. Thank you all for the photo. forum. On behalf of the organizing committee of 5th GLU Management Forum 2021, we would like to express our highest gratitude to Yang Berbahagia Profesor Teknologi Dr. Mohamed Ibrahim Abdul Muttalib, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Teknologi Petronas, and Chairman of GLU Council. Yang Berbahagia Profesor Datuk Insinyur Dr. Kamal Nasharuddin Mustafa, Vice Chancellor, Universiti Tenaga Nasional. Yang Berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Mazliha Muhammad Suud, President, Multimedia University. Yang Berbahagia Datuk Dr. Roziah Omar, President, Chief Executive Officer, Universiti Kuala Lumpur, and all panelists for sparing your precious time with us today. We would also like to extend our appreciation to all participants for joining us in this forum. Till we meet again in 2020, don't forget #Malaysia Prihatin, #Stay safe, #Stay strong together. Thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.